Hello, it's April, and I watch Hello Okanagan from Lavington.
Hey Peter, who do we have on the show today?
Hey buddy, I'm just scrubbing in. We got the one and only Dr. Pete Henley, who's been very vocal on numerous social media pages like Coronavirus Okanagan. So we have the voice of reason. We have a ton of questions from you and from us. So stay tuned with Dr. Pete. Our guest today is Dr. Pete Henley, who's been very vocal on many social media outlets such as Coronavirus Okanagan Updates, a popular Facebook page, as the voice of reason. So we thought we'd invite him down and enlighten us all and answer numerous questions that David and I have and many of our viewers and friends wanted to ask. How you doing, Dr. Pete?
I'm good, thanks, Peter. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's good.
So yeah, Dr. Pete, before we deep dive into this, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up in the Okanagan, and what your life's looked like during this pandemic?
Yeah, well, we moved over as a family. My wife's a GP as well. We were living in England, been working over there, and we kind of fancied a new challenge with our two young boys. So we came over in 2009, moved to Coldstream, and been working in Vernon as family physicians since then. So boys have loved living in the area. You know, we take advantage of all the fantastic things that go around us here, and the lakes and skiing and everything. And it's good until the pandemic hit, and then life changed, as it does for everyone.
Wonderful. Well, let's dive right into it. First question, where did COVID-19 come from, and how did it initially infect humans? Was it wet markets? Was it an accident? Was it deliberate?
It's kind of, we kind of know that it's come from Wuhan area in China. There's still kind of a lot of debate as to where it came from. There's a lot of people that suggest it's come from man-made sources, that it may have been deliberately released. I've looked at the information, and my kind of hunch is that it has probably come from bats, which are the normal vectors that have spread a lot of viruses. Previous coronaviruses have come from bats, but it's unlikely to have been deliberately released. The question is whether it has come from bats directly, or whether it came from bats to another vector where they typically then infect other animals like pigs, or they also have pangolins over there, which may be another possible kind of vector. So nobody really knows, but I think the scientific evidence suggests that it wasn't deliberate, that it didn't escape a lab or was deliberately put out there. It just was a kind of combination of circumstances. It probably appeared grumbling in the community maybe earlier than it first created cases in Wuhan, which was probably in December. So it may have been in a very low scale in October, and then kind of blew up from then.
I actually read something yesterday that there was satellite images that they observed a dramatic increase of hospital traffic outside the 5 major Wuhan hospitals as early as last fall. So I think you're correct.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's, relying on information from China is extremely difficult. I definitely think there was a likely delay in announcing what was going on. I saw that report with the parking lots full, and it kind of, there has to be some kind of explanation from that. I think case numbers were also hugely underestimated when they, in the figures that they've been putting out, which if you compare to other places in the world, Italy got hit hard. They subsequently went, with very low numbers, which I think are very dubious.
So as far as origin, though, we're like there's hunches, but we're not really exactly sure, right?
I'm pretty sure that it wasn't released. I think looking at the evidence, I can't say that 100%, but looking at the evidence, that it was likely it had originally come from bats, but how it got into the human population is another matter. They've studied the structure of it, which kind of gives them more information as to whether it was human created or naturally acquired, and I think they're kind of favoring the naturally acquired.
Yeah.
So it'll come out in the wash, hopefully. I'm not sure that we'll get all the information. China's never been the most open of countries, so I'm not sure we'll know the absolute facts, but we'll know more certainly at some stage.
Fair enough. So like, when did it arrive in Canada and BC? When did we first start seeing it here?
The first cases were actually seen kind of towards the end of January. There was a tourist that had come from Wuhan, and they identified it. I think it was about the 28th of January. And then subsequent to that, they found out that there was some community spread, so not just from a direct traveller spread, around the early part of March. It was quite interesting. They just did a recent presentation, Dr. Henley and co, and they actually demonstrated that the sources of infection didn't initially predominantly come from Wuhan, but they did initially from there. But there were also cases that came over from Iran. But the main source of this infection within BC was actually from a dental conference that they'd held at the beginning of March. That was a worldwide conference that had 15,000 people in it from all over the world. And several people were at it who clearly brought it in from these countries, infected people, and then that spread throughout BC. So they've managed to, they can now type the type of, there's slight variations in the genome of the virus structure, and they've been able to identify that the different countries brought the COVID into the dental conference, and then it spread throughout. So there were 87 cases, I think, identified at the conference, which then spread quite significantly throughout BC. And the other source, mainly within BC, has been spread from the south, predominantly through Washington, travel both north and south, but also from other returners from Europe and from other parts of America. So you'd think that typically this would have come predominantly from China, and there's been a lot of racial stuff going on against the Chinese, which seems to be a little bit unfair given the actual source of where it seems to be coming from, which is elsewhere rather than the Asian population.
And I know there's a lot of chatter on social media that you're always tackling the conspiracy theories, government control, vaccine theories, vaccine spikes, Bill Gates, virus doesn't exist, it's linked to 5G, and all these things about like, oh, your chances of getting COVID is the same chance as getting hit by a car when you cross the street. I mean, I like to think I cross the street with my eyes wide open, so enlighten us. Yeah,
absolutely. I with the conspiracy stuff, I mean, I think that goes on in the world. I kind of never really delved into it before I started this Facebook group, but kind of coming into it more face to face as a scientist is trying to make rational thoughts as to what the hell they're on about, and you can't. The trouble is, you try and discuss it with people with this opinion, and they won't come back with you with a proper argument. They'll throw a viral video in your face. That kind of happens all the time, or tell me to do my research. And kind of the whole benefit, I think, of the group that I am involved with is that we actually provide evidence, so that hopefully people will see that this is what the latest evidence that the scientists are now producing. So whilst, I mean, scientists are learning every day on this, so the everyday information changes. So input comes in, and we make that judgment as to what we're looking at. So, and that's how public health in BC is certainly looking at it. They learn stuff and they adapt. So,
okay.
I have no idea about the Bill Gates stuff. I haven't got a clue on that. Bill Gates is actually incredibly kind of forward thinking, and 5 years ago he was predicting something like this. So you can read anything into anything anyone says. I can't make sense. It's mad. I've given up with that lot anyway. So I was kind of I'm seen as the spawn of Satan with them. So I'm fine with that. I'm good. I'm the scientist.
So as far as that goes, though, also on the same note of this, regardless, because obviously, like you say, it's difficult when people who don't necessarily have scientific evidence are coming forward and
Yeah.
throwing articles like that. What about some of like the doctors that have actually come forward and said come forward with their opinions on how some of the things that are happening aren't making sense, how some of the things aren't being portrayed clearly? Like, there are like reputable doctors that are actually coming forward too. What are your thoughts on them?
I think you have to look at, you can't ignore any sources of information. I think there are doctors that are coming forward with their theories. There was a doctor in New York that was an intensive care specialist that came forward saying that this was all of the treatments were wrong because they were using ventilators, and this was totally the wrong treatment. Now, that went out as a viral video, and you have to then think, okay, well, has the world completely got it wrong? There's a world full of intensive care specialists that are looking at this. Now, that's not saying they're all right and he's wrong, but they then analysed the information and they then refuted the things that he'd actually said. So this is the problem with social media nowadays, is that something gets picked up and then run with. It becomes viral, therefore it's perceived as true. And that doesn't mean that it's true. It just says, okay, I've seen it this many times, therefore it must be fact. So if I'm looking at something like that, I'll watch it. I'm not an expert in that field anyhow. So I'll then look at the evidence. And an example of that one was that it was looked at by a very eminent team of intensive care specialists, and they felt that this wasn't actually correct information. At some stage, we may stumble on something and say, yes, we're doing something completely differently and it's working, in which case that's a good thing to happen, and we can then hopefully treat the virus. So you have to treat everything as if it's possibly true, and then perhaps try and disprove it to find out whether it is true or not. So
another common question is like, how dangerous is it really? A lot of people are talking about it. Is it like a flu? Like how bad is it really? Some people will think they can get through it very easily, whereas, and they might be right, whereas other people, it might affect them definitely more strongly.
It's incredibly variable. I mean, for the bulk of people, they suggest around kind of worldwide, about 80% of people just breeze through it. At the moment, there may well be a number of people that don't even know they've had it. They've had a little bit of a cold-like symptom, and when we come to do the blood testing, we may find that they've got antibodies and they've actually had it. They never knew. There are other people that really do know that they've had it. They don't get significantly ill, but they get quite significant chest symptoms, tightness, and they feel completely fatigued and tired, and it takes them probably a month to get over it. And then there's the 20% that then get moderate to severe disease that then end up often needing admission to hospital. Now, they're kind of the more vulnerable groups, and obviously the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions. And they can get significantly ill with it and end up needing ventilation. Good example, my mum, incredibly senior lady, I won't give her age, and she got COVID in the UK. She's in an assisted living, and she got COVID, and she gave me the classical symptoms that she'd got this dry cough, and then she felt a bit fluey, and then she'd lost the sense of smell, and she's got all sorts of medical stuff, but she got over it. And it's kind of, she would be a prime target for somebody who did very badly, but she didn't. So it's a condition that's unpredictable. You can predict to some point that some people do worse. Men certainly are in a worse position for, they think, an assortment of reasons. The elderly also are higher at risk. So it's one of those things that we learn about more and more every day as to how it potentially can target it, but we still don't fully understand it. So the thing that I kind of get thrown back at me all the time is that the hospitals were empty, and this is completely overblown. We've over exaggerated the situation. But how I see it is that we've actually dealt with it in a very responsible public health way, and it's just we're kind of a victim of the good public health strategy that we've got on top of it. I compare ourselves with, say, Quebec, another province, whose mortality rates are high, their case rates are high, and I see us as having a success rate here, and we're damned for it because nothing seems to be happening, but that's because we did a good job.
Hey guys, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to our channel.
What I do hear a lot, though, is people that have had COVID, even though they get better, there's a certain percentage that actually will have an underlying issue for the rest of their lives, whether it be a lung issue or something. Is that true?
If you get moderate to severe disease, then you can be left with significant breathing problems, for example. I think most people get over it. They might take months, but they generally do. But you can be left with, long-going symptoms, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And now the big question as well, transmission. Yeah. How is it transmitted? Surfaces, mosquitoes. I recently ordered something online and I realized it's coming from Wuhan. So should I be worried?
It's spread by droplet spread. So this is why the success for physical distancing is working so well. This is why people are advocating masks in cases where you can't distance yourself. So surfaces, it can be off surfaces, but it's easily cleaned. It's a virus that could be washed off the hands very easily, disinfected off surfaces. People clean their food and their groceries as they come home. Is it necessary? I still do it, but is it necessary? Probably not. If you're getting something, say, delivered from Amazon or Wuhan, then it's likely that that's long ago died if there was any virus on it. Okay. If you're opening boxes, then obviously open them up and then wash your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds and you'll be good.
Okay. Now, as far as like you mentioned that it's spread through droplets. So like back to the scientific evidence, like how did we find out that it was spread through droplets?
Through the science of looking at it, basically. So I think the scientific, the epidemiologists and the scientists have looked at how it is being transmitted. And the two options would be either droplet spread, which coronaviruses typically are, and Ebola virus was, and airborne viruses, which are things like chickenpox and TB. And this has been definitely confirmed as a droplet spread virus. The droplets are obviously if somebody is sneezing or coughing or singing, then these droplets can be spread some distance, which is why they kind of set the arbitrary 6 feet, which is keeping things at a distance.
With masks, you mentioned wearing masks in situations where physical distancing is not possible. Now with the masks, like how mandatory is it? Does it really make that much of a difference in these situations? You're seeing some people wearing masks, but you're seeing, especially here, most people are not wearing masks.
Yeah.
Do you wear a mask, for example? Like if you're going out, do you wear a mask?
If I go out and I'm in a situation where I don't think that I will be able to guarantee distancing, then I will take a mask with me and wear it when I go into, for example, a shop. I've got to say, I don't wear them outside, and I don't wear them in large stores where I can guarantee that I can space from other people. If it's a small shop, or if I think it's going to be crowded, then I definitely would wear one. I wore one yesterday. I went to Walmart. I had to go there, and I've heard feedback from people about what shops are good and what aren't. So I wore one. It's just it's something that some people feel more comfortable than others. I think it's more important, say, for example, wearing them in public transit. If you're in an enclosed space for a prolonged period, sitting in a bus, they're starting to introduce them on BC ferries now as well. So I think there's more mask use. The difficulty is Canadians aren't used to wearing them, so they feel very self-conscious by doing so. And they feel everyone's looking at them when they probably aren't. But at Public Health don't mandate wearing masks, but they suggest wearing them where you cannot guarantee that you're going to be able to keep that distance.
Of course, because you don't want to speak moistly on anybody, right?
You don't. Definitely not. No.
Yes.
And what's the news on vaccines?
Vaccines are getting on for 100 companies that are producing vaccines. They are currently trialing some vaccines down in Brazil. The difficulty is that when you start reducing the numbers of COVID, your local population is more difficult to use as a test subject because nobody has COVID. So they're having to use the epicenters now to test the vaccine. So they've started that down in Brazil and probably other countries which have high incidence. As for when they'll likely come out, my thoughts are probably December-ish at the earliest, but I think probably a reliable vaccine that I would probably be happy to use myself would be one that I wouldn't see before March, I don't think. That's kind of guesswork, but that's what I'm looking at with the figures. It takes a long time to develop these safely.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what about blood testing to see if you mentioned like a lot of people have probably had it and don't even know that they've had it. Is that becoming available? Is it going to be available?
Yeah, they're kind of in BC CDC and Public Health are looking at serology testing at the moment, and it has to be incredibly accurate. So it can't have too many false positives and too many false negatives. So they're bringing one out, one or two, within the next couple of weeks or so, and then they'll roll that out, looking at healthcare workers to start with, checking to see whether they have showing any signs of immunity. Then they're going to probably spread it to just testing isolated portions of the community, and then at some stage they might broaden that. But I can't imagine that they're going to bring it across the whole of BC. It's not, apart from people's curiosity as whether they've had it or not. It's too big a thing to do at the moment. So they'll be targeting serology at the moment.
And what about travel? I know that Destination British Columbia has always had a hashtag Hello BC. Now it's Hello BC, stay home. When do you think it's going to be safe to travel and especially to fly? Are we waiting for a vaccine before that goes back to normal?
I wouldn't. I mean, I've got obviously family in the UK, and I would certainly avoid flights at the moment. Having said that, planes do have very good filtration systems. So unless you're sitting next to somebody with COVID, then you'd be actually pretty unlucky to get it. But having said that, international travel, I think, is going to be out for a considerable time at the moment. So we're stuck having to explore the wonderful BC that's around us, which is good with me. Love it.
So things are obviously starting to like open up a little bit more also, going into different phases, etc. However, there is a lot of chatter, some of it rumored, some of it more, predictive, or like you said, guesswork also, about a second wave in the fall. What would that look like if you were to predict or make a guess now? What would that look like? When are we potentially to expect that? Is it going to be a summer where things start to open up some more and then we're going to shut everything down again come September, October, or is it going to just periodically stay how it is now?
I think we're probably stuck with COVID for a considerable time now. It's going to probably become what they call endemic within the population. So I don't think we're going to get rid of it anytime soon. Second wave, I think, is Bonnie Henry had said, and she's the expert on pandemics, that there is always a second wave in these kind of things. So we have to expect that. We're in a better position now that we know that it's here, and if we're keeping a very close eye on the cases by identifying symptomatic patients within the province, we should be able to get on top of it pretty quickly. And she specifically said that it wouldn't be a complete rollback to how it was at the beginning of March. We would just pull back slightly and compensate. So we wouldn't be shutting all the businesses down again unless it completely took off. She's deliberately picked this roughly 60% physical contact level below which we must stay, otherwise it would take off. And if we keep below that level, it'll keep it within controllable levels so that we can just continue as before, but just slightly pull back and keep things safe for everyone. The difficulty is coming into the fall, you've then got the flu season coming in and added respiratory viruses. So that can cause problems. But I think as long as the public health are on the ball, then they'll keep an eye on it, and we should be good.
Schools, is it going to be safe to bring kids back to school, do you figure, in September, or are we still going to be having virtual classes?
I think they're going to have a mixed virtual and in-class situation, I think, really. So they decided they'd bring in early schools just for the kind of trial run before the summer. They looked at the numbers and felt that children don't transmit the virus easily. So they felt, looking at the numbers, that would be safe. And then that being as a trial run, as a voluntary run for parents that want to send their children in, then they'll then roll out a kind of partial in-class virtual system as they move forward, really. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And how long do you think that these precautions, restrictions, recommendations will be around for? I know that there's lots of chat about, everyone is disliking this term, the new normal. So when will we go back to what was normal? And how long will these things stay around? And will we be
I think that's very difficult to say. I think, as I say, I think this is going to be something that's going to be with us for a long time. This is kind of just, we've got through this step and we've done it very well in BC, but I think this physical distancing is going to be there for a long time. The hand hygiene, I think, is going to be. We're going to stick with that. We need a vaccine. We need effective treatment. We haven't got them yet, but they're doing a lot of trials throughout the globe. And until we get a vaccine that works, or at least partially works, like flu vaccinations, then we're stuck with it. That doesn't mean that we have to stay in our houses. We just need to adapt our lifestyle to make sure that the numbers stay low.
I think our biggest threat is complacement.
Yeah, it is. And that's the problem, that people see that we're doing extremely well in BC, therefore we can just relax and we can just go back to normal. And you could see that once phase 2 started, and it isn't normal. We still have no vaccine. We still have no treatment. So we've done extremely well, but we've got to stay on top of this. It's a virus which is extremely cunning, and it can hit at just the wrong point when you don't want it to. So we've got to take it very seriously.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Pete Henley, for being on the show.
Good. I've enjoyed it. It's good.
If you guys want more on Dr. Pete, check him out on Facebook, Coronavirus Okanagan. You can reach him there directly.
Absolutely. Come and join the fun. I do try and keep it humorous and entertaining as well as the scientific. So it's good fun. Hard work, but good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for watching, everybody. On next week's show, we are having a town hall on how businesses adjusted during this time.
Business owners from the world of clothing, the restaurants, gym, and cider industry are going to be chatting about how they pivoted back in March.
And Peter, why don't you tell everybody about our new Facebook group?
You jump onto Facebook on our Hello Okanagan page. We pinned on top a new Facebook group called Hello Okanagan, You're Beautiful. We'd love to see what you have taken for photos, videos, and let us know your favorite parts of the Okanagan. Share it with the world.